Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to our channel, Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower.
It's great to be back.
This is episode 36, and today we're doing a really crucial deep dive. We are focusing entirely on the powerful research laid out by Mr. Zaheer Ahmad Meer in his book, Quaid-e-Azam of Pakistan.
And this is an important one. It's a deep dive that really looks at the internal architecture of the nation. It's not about external policy. It's about the very foundations.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to really examine this internal health check that the book provides.
And it addresses a very complex subject, which is the nature of Pakistan's internal divisions. We're talking ethnic, political, sectarian.
Class-based, all of them. And then it presents the founders' original unity model, which the author calls constitutional nationalism, as the necessary solution.
And Mr. Meer, the author, he starts this whole thing with a declaration that, honestly, it just shifts the entire conversation around national security. It moves the focus away from, borders and missiles, and puts it squarely on political culture and justice. He says, and this is the hook, no nation collapses from external attack unless it is already divided from within.
That one sentence is immense. It completely reframes what vulnerability means.
It does.
It's saying that external threats, they're just catalysts. They're not the real cause of failure.
The primary vulnerability is internal. It's fragmentation. It's like the enemy doesn't need to break down the door if we've already left all the windows open.
Or if the cracks in the walls are already there, they just have to step right through.
Precisely. If a nation is unified, if there's shared loyalty, a sense of justice, it can handle incredible external pressure. But if it's fractured, if, people trust their faction more than their state,
then it's already compromised.
Conceptually, yes, it's already compromised.
So our goal for you, our listener, is really twofold. First, to understand in detail the 6 major internal fault lines the book identifies, the ones that are weakening the nation. And second, to really grasp the 6-step national unity reconstruction framework that the author proposes to heal those divisions.
And it's all through this very specific lens he calls constitutional nationalism. This isn't just theory. It's a detailed step-by-step roadmap for structural repair.
So to understand the cure, we have to start with the original design. The book argues that we often recite the foundational principles, faith, unity, discipline, but we treat them well. We treat them like slogans.
Ceremonial slogans, things you put on a building. But the book argues, and I think very convincingly, that they were intended to be much, much more than that.
So what's the difference? What makes them a constitutional formula instead of just a slogan?
Well, a slogan is aspirational. It's something you hope for. A constitutional formula is operational. It's a set of instructions. The book insists these 3 words were the non-negotiable operational guidelines for the state. For its politics, its laws, its social structure, they were supposed to dictate policy.
So if later governments just treated them as, nice ideas,
then they fundamentally misunderstood the founders' vision for how to hold the nation together. They missed the instruction manual.
So if it's a formula, what did Jinnah's vision of unity specifically mandate? According to the book's analysis, what were the rules for the citizens?
The mandate was, it was rigorous. First, equal citizenship for all. No qualifications. It doesn't matter where you came from, what your beliefs were, your status. Everyone is an equal citizen.
That's the bedrock.
Second, the absolute rule of law. And absolute is the key word there. The system must apply the law equally to every single person, from the highest official to the most humble citizen. No exception.
And the third piece, according to the source, was the total absence of discrimination.
Which is really just the practical results of the rule of law, isn't it? The source lists it out. No ethnic superiority, no sectarian privilege, no regional hierarchy.
So the state was designed to be, what, colorblind? Blind to the things that divide people politically.
Exactly. Blind to the differences that divide the polity, but focused on the differences that enrich the culture. That's a key distinction.
It's a total rejection, then, of the tribal mentality, at least at the political level. The individual is a citizen, not a representative of their little group.
Precisely. The whole point was to create one political nation, not, and this is what the book really hammers home, not a collection of competing identities all fighting for control of the state.
The loyalty was supposed to be singular, to the constitutional state itself.
Yes, to its principles.
Which brings us to the central tragedy that the book points out, the divergence between that original intent and what we see today. The source says, Jinnah created Pakistan by uniting differences. Pakistan weakened when it institutionalized differences.
That is a devastating diagnosis, isn't it? The nation was created by an act of unity despite differences. Economic, linguistic, you name it.
But later policies did the exact opposite.
They took those natural differences and they formalized them. They gave them official status. And critically, they attached political and economic rewards to them.
Okay, let's zero in on that phrase, institutionalized differences. It sounds a bit academic, but it's the core problem we're about to dive into. What does that look like in the real world?
It means you create systems where your identity, your province, your sect, your language becomes the ticket to get something from the state.
So it's about resource allocation or jobs.
Exactly. Political power-sharing formulas, job quotas that are maybe disproportionate. When you force citizens to identify by their group label first just to access state resources, you're actively paying them to be fragmented.
You're incentivizing disunity.
You're making the entire state reliant on factional warfare to function, which makes it incredibly vulnerable.
So instead of demanding loyalty to the nation's constitution, the system starts demanding loyalty to the faction that can get you the most from the center.
Yes. It's turning what should be a cultural asset or diversity into a political weapon.
That sets us up perfectly to look at the 6 specific ways the book says that unity was systematically fractured.
Right.
So if the design was unity, something clearly went wrong. And the book gives us this really profound concept here. Disunity is not natural. It is manufactured.
And that's a strategic term. Manufactured disunity.
Yeah.
It means these divisions weren't some inevitable outcome of having a diverse population.
No, it's not an accident.
Not at all. It means they were actively seeded, amplified by political rhetoric, by media, and then used by elites to, distract people and hold on to power.
It's opportunistic politics.
Highly opportunistic. The book is very critical of this, of treating national cohesion as just, collateral damage of the game of power.
Okay, so let's get into the diagnosis. The 6 specific fault lines and how each one was weaponized. Let's start with the political sphere itself.
The first one, and you can say it's the most damaging to actually governing, is political polarization.
The book says politics transformed from service to war. I mean, we see that happening in a lot of places globally, but for a nation built on this idea of constitutional unity, that's an existential threat.
It is, absolutely. Because when politics becomes war, the first thing that dies is the assumption that your opposition is legitimate, that they're loyal.
Right. They're not just partners you disagree with on policy.
They become enemies. And when you treat your opposition as an enemy of the state, well, you get zero collaboration. You get total gridlock. You can't have any long-term planning because every new government feels it has to destroy everything the last one did.
It's a cycle of revenge politics, and the weaponization there is structural. The goal becomes destroying the other side's legitimacy, even if that means damaging national institutions along the way.
And the whole system becomes collateral damage. The state's focus just shifts from national development to internal political survival.
Okay, so that's the first. What's the second major fault line the author details?
Ethnic and provincial exploitation.
This is that institutionalizing differences we talked about. This is where regional and linguistic identities were actively weaponized.
Yes. To get votes, to get resources, politicians will often make these very narrow, zero-sum ethnic or provincial appeals.
So instead of framing provincial rights as part of a healthy national whole,
they frame them as a hostile fight against other provinces or against the central state. It turns legitimate demands for, say, infrastructure or development into tools of political warfare.
So a politician in one region can build their entire career by constantly highlighting perceived injustices from other regions, even if the claims are exaggerated.
And it works. It deliberately destroys national loyalty in favor of a much more narrow parochial loyalty. It fractures the whole idea of shared citizenship.
It creates this permanent state of mistrust, the idea that my region can only prosper if your region suffers.
And the book sees this not as some unfortunate side effect, but as a deliberate political strategy.
All right, on to the third fault line, sectarian division. The book talks about the politicization of religion, moving it away from its moral role.
This is a devastating one. When religion is politicized, when one particular interpretation or sect is given some kind of preferential political status, it stops being a source of moral guidance.
It becomes a weapon.
It becomes a boundary marker, a very powerful, very emotional tool to exclude people, to marginalize them, to declare other citizens as other.
And the emotional power of sectarianism makes it an incredibly effective tool for manufactured disunity. It's much more potent than just political disagreement.
Oh, absolutely. Because the divisions are based on fundamental beliefs. They're incredibly hard to bridge. And when political actors harness that energy, you get these deep, visceral splits in society that could even justify hatred or violence, all for political gain.
Which is the polar opposite of the faith principle in the original formula.
The very opposite.
Okay, the fourth fault line. This one hits the economic sphere. Economic inequality, class divisions. The author sees this as a primary driver of national resentment.
And resentment is the key word. When a small elite visibly controls a massive, disproportionate amount of the nation's wealth and opportunity.
Often through corruption or connections.
Exactly. And at the same time, that elite demands patriotism and unity from the marginalized majority. Well, that demand is just rejected. It rings hollow. Extreme class division just eats away at the emotional basis for unity.
It's a simple question, right? Why should I feel loyal to a state that I feel is actively helping to exploit me or denying me a fair chance?
You wouldn't. It's a rational response.
Yeah.
If the state is consistently seen as only serving the rich, the poor feel no moral or emotional connection to that state. The book basically argues that economic justice is a core element of national cohesion.
So failing to address inequality is a failure of unity itself.
That's the argument.
Which leads right into the fifth fault line. Language and cultural misuse. How is diversity, which should be a strength, turned into a weapon?
Diversity is an asset when it's celebrated as part of a shared whole. When every language, every culture feels valued. It becomes a weapon for division when political parties use those differences to pit groups against each other.
And they often do that by fueling this idea of cultural imposition.
Precisely. The idea that one majority group is trying to erase the identity of a minority group. Whether it's true or not, the perception is what matters.
So the beauty of cultural difference gets converted into political ammunition.
Yes. And the source suggests this ensures that all the energy that should be going into development is instead spent on protecting cultural boundaries. It stops a unified political space from ever really forming.
And finally, the sixth fault line, the one that you could argue enables all the others, institutional bias and injustice.
This is the linchpin. The whole system of manufactured disunity rests on this.
The destructive role of selective justice.
Yes. If the very institutions that are meant to uphold the social contract, the judiciary, the police, the bureaucracy, if they don't apply the law equally, then the whole contract just collapses.
Selective justice is where the powerful walk free. They're protected by connections, by money.
While the weak are held accountable instantly. And when citizens see that happen over and over again, it's not that national trust is weakened, it's destroyed. Completely.
So if the system is fundamentally biased, why would any rational person commit their loyalty to the idea of a unified nation run by that system?
They wouldn't. The connection is direct and causal. Disunity is the product. And institutional bias is the essential manufacturing tool that creates it.
Now that we have the diagnosis of the six fractures, we have to connect this to the cold, hard reality of national security. The author, Mr. Meer, is very clear that unity is not some soft, feel-good emotion.
No. He frames it as a hard strategic necessity for survival.
Which makes this relevant for everyone. Let's repeat that core warning again because it's so important. A divided nation is an occupied nation in waiting.
That is a severe warning. It suggests a nation can be internally occupied long before a foreign army ever shows up.
It's already weak.
It's already so weak, it just needs the slightest external push to fall apart. It lacks the moral, political, and material integrity to resist pressure.
So let's detail the 6 specific strategic outcomes of this internal division that the book lays out. First, and this is the most obvious one, weak defense capabilities.
Defense isn't just about jets and tanks. It's about collective will. If the nation is fractured along ethnic or sectarian lines, that unified commitment you need for national defense is just. It's compromised.
You can't fight an external enemy if you're too busy fighting each other.
Exactly. Disunity means a lack of shared commitment. It means compromised morale. It means a huge portion of your national resources are being wasted on managing internal crises instead of securing your borders. You're fighting 2 wars.
The second outcome is tied directly to that opening thesis, vulnerability to foreign manipulation.
This is where manufactured disunity really pays off for external actors. They don't have to invent problems.
They just have to find the existing fault lines.
And pour fuel on the fire. They identify the ethnic disputes, the sectarian tensions, and then they provide funding, propaganda, maybe even arms, to the most divisive internal factions.
It's like outsourcing warfare. They turn our political competition into their proxy war.
And it's incredibly cost-effective for them. The internal divisions become self-sustaining conflicts, fueled by foreign money, creating this permanent instability that ties up our state's attention and military resources forever.
The third outcome is economic paralysis.
Of course. I mean, who is going to make a serious long-term investment, domestic or foreign, in a country with perpetual political instability?
Where contracts might not be honored by the next government.
Exactly. Economic growth needs predictability. It needs policy consensus and trust. When a nation is chronically divided, policy is always shifting, capital flight speeds up, and you get this paralysis. You can't generate the wealth you need to lift people out of poverty.
Fourth is severe political instability. The book makes a distinction between this and just normal political disagreement.
Right. Political instability is the result of that politics as war mentality. It means constant crises, short-lived governments, and this total inability to get any continuity of governance.
So you can never tackle the big long-term challenges.
Impossible. Things like climate change, education reform, major infrastructure projects. They all require decades of consistent policy, and you can't get that with perpetual instability.
Fifth is institutional collapse. And the source says this isn't a sudden event, it's a slow decay.
It's the end result of chronic institutional bias. If institutions are constantly used to serve factions instead of the public, their capacity, their legitimacy, it all just degrades.
And when the judiciary is seen as politicized or the police as partisan,
the state's whole mechanism for resolving conflict just fails. And when institutions collapse, the state is left with nothing but raw, unstable power to maintain order. And that is the definition of a failed state in waiting.
And all of this leads, inevitably, to the sixth outcome, chronic social unrest.
If people feel they're being treated unjustly, that they're economically excluded, that they're victims of identity politics, eventually they move from quiet resentment to open protest.
And that unrest just feeds the cycle.
It does. It deters more investment, it strains law enforcement, and it solidifies the nation's image on the global stage as unstable. So, unity, built on justice. It's not just a moral ideal. The book is clear. It is the nation's single most important strategic asset.
And this is where it gets really interesting. We move from the diagnosis of the fractures to the specific prescription. The book introduces the cure, constitutional nationalism.
And it contrasts this very sharply with simple emotional nationalism.
What's the difference?
Emotional nationalism it's fleeting. It relies on temporary unity. You need an external threat or maybe a big cricket victory for it to show up.
It's reactive.
Very reactive and often superficial. Constitutional nationalism, on the other hand, is a rigorous, functional model. It's based entirely on how the state behaves and how citizens commit to a specific, defined constitutional contract.
So if emotional nationalism is about feeling patriotic, constitutional nationalism is about doing patriotism.
That's a great way to put it. It's about adherence to the law, loyalty by consent.
So what are the 5 pillars that define this model?
The first is the absolute foundation, equal law for all citizens. This is the direct antidote to institutional bias. The Constitution must be the supreme identity. Every single citizen is equal under its law. No exceptions.
Second, to fight exploitation, the emphasis is on merit over identity.
This is the practical antidote to ethnic and provincial exploitation. The book demands that jobs, opportunities, university spots, leadership roles, they have to be based solely on capability, on competence.
So meritocracy is the structural guarantee against favoritism.
And it's the only way you ensure the most competent people are running the state, regardless of their background.
But, and this is a common question, doesn't a pure focus on merit risk ignoring historical injustices or, regional underrepresentation?
And that's the essential tension the book gets into. The author stresses that equal opportunity has to come first. You must ensure quality education and resources are available everywhere. But once you've established that level playing field, merit has to be the decider. Because sacrificing competence for identity is, in the long run, sacrificing the nation's future.
Okay. The third pillar, an emphasis on justice over favoritism.
Justice has to be visible, not just done, but seen to be done. Favoritism using state power to benefit a select group is the fastest way to breed that national resentment we talked about. The state has to be ruthlessly blind to connections and power.
Fourth, a balance of rights with responsibilities.
I think this is so important. Citizens have to internalize that their rights are tied to their duties. You can't demand a perfectly functioning state if you, as a citizen, aren't committed to your own civic duties, obeying the law, paying taxes, participating.
It's a two-sided coin.
Both sides have to be upheld.
And the final pillar, which directly attacks the manufactured divisions, prioritizing state loyalty over faction loyalty.
This is the ultimate test. If there's a conflict between what your ethnic group wants or your political party wants and what the Constitution requires, the state loyalty must win, every time. The nation's survival, according to the source, depends on this.
And this entire model, it all rests on one simple, profound idea from the book. Unity survives when justice is visible.
And that just establishes justice as the non-negotiable prerequisite for cohesion. Unity isn't just built on shared culture. It's built on the daily, lived experience of fairness. If people see justice, they trust the institutions. And that trust is the glue that holds the nation together.
Which sets us up perfectly for the practical framework for Reconstruction.
Right. So this next part is the roadmap, the practical steps the author offers to dismantle those 6 fault lines and rebuild constitutional trust. The first 3 steps are all about fixing the foundation: the law, identity, and the national story.
Let's start with step 1. This one aims directly at that core problem of institutional bias.
Step 1, restore equality before law. The book is completely adamant on this point. Injustice is the most powerful enemy of unity. So the first move has to be the immediate, visible restoration of equality before the law.
And this isn't just about passing new laws, is it? It's a fundamental change in culture.
It is. And it requires 3 hard actions. First, ending selective accountability. The system has to be rebuilt so that protection based on status or political connections is impossible. If the law is only for the common citizen, it's not law, it's oppression.
Second, establishing one singular standard of justice.
This means judicial processes have to be standardized. They have to be transparent, and they have to be insulated from political interference. The outcome of a case has to depend on the evidence, not on the defendant's last name.
And the third part of this, getting rid of the so-called sacred cows.
This is the ultimate test of political will. The source is clear. If any institution, any powerful individual is seen as being above the law, the whole project of constitutional nationalism fails right there. The book demands that no one is above the law. Accountability has to be universal and visible.
That visibility is everything. You hold the powerful to account, and the system gains legitimacy overnight. Okay, on to step 2, which tackles those deliberate divisions.
Step 2, de-weaponize identity politics.
Yeah.
The goal here is, it's ambitious. It's respect without fragmentation.
Celebrate diversity, but stop it from being a political weapon.
Exactly. You have to systematically strip identity of its destructive political use.
So how do you do that? What's the prescription?
First, ethnicity must be removed as a political tool. This means shifting away from a politics where success depends on mobilizing your ethnic group against another. Political competition has to be about governance, about policy, about economic performance.
So it's about what you deliver, not who you are.
Precisely. Second, on the sectarian issue, the source says sectarian hatred must be explicitly criminalized, and that has to be strictly enforced. The state simply cannot tolerate speech or actions that incite hatred or violence based on religious differences.
That requires clear, modern laws on hate speech.
And aggressive prosecution. You have to permanently separate the moral role of religion from its political exploitation.
And third, on the provincial issue.
The source states that provincial rights must be understood and exercised strictly within the context of national integrity. Provinces have legitimate rights and needs, but those rights can't be used to undermine the central state or to foster hostility toward other regions. They are parts of a unified whole.
So regional pride is good, but using regional grievance to damage national cohesion is unacceptable, which leads to step 3, which is about the very fabric of belief, the national story.
Step 3, national narrative reform. The book really stresses the necessity of shared stories. Nations are, at their core, psychological constructs. They survive on a shared understanding of who they are.
If every faction has its own contradictory version of history, unity is impossible.
You can't agree on the future if you can't even agree on the past.
So what are the key parts of this narrative reform?
It starts with a unified historical interpretation. This doesn't mean a false, simplistic history. It means establishing a common ground of accepted national milestones and constitutional truths that all citizens are taught and acknowledge as the shared national story.
And beyond just history, you need shared figures, shared heroes.
Exactly. Shared recognition of national heroes.
Yeah.
You have to elevate figures who transcend all the divisions, regional, ethnic, sectarian, people who represent the highest ideals of the unified nation. They serve as models for the new civic culture.
And tying it all back to the foundation, common constitutional values.
Every citizen must understand and subscribe to faith, unity, discipline as legally binding behavioral values, not just phrases on a wall. These values have to permeate the entire education system, the media, all of public life.
And you embed all of this through education-based patriotism.
Yes. The book argues that patriotism shouldn't be coercive. It should be taught through rigorous civics. Understanding the Constitution, respecting the law. It's patriotism based on knowledge and responsibility, not just blind flag-waving.
We've laid the foundation with law, identity, and narrative. Now we move to the economic and institutional parts that make it all stick. Let's get to step 4.
Step 4, economic inclusion.
The diagnosis was clear. You can't have unity with extreme inequality. So economic justice here is presented as a structural builder of unity. If you feel the system is working for you, you'll defend that system.
Economic inclusion is the material proof of justice. The state has to actively fix the resentment caused by these huge class and regional gaps. It makes unity a lived reality for people.
So what are the key prescriptions for this?
First, ensuring equal opportunity. This is where meritocracy becomes real. Opportunity has to be made accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or where they live. And that means actively dismantling old patronage networks.
Second, addressing that source of provincial grievance, prioritizing regional development.
The source is clear. If all the growth in infrastructure is just in a few big cities, the rest of the country will feel permanently left out and exploited. Development has to be strategically balanced to bring prosperity to historically marginalized areas. That dissolves the economic reason for ethnic grievance.
Third, and this is huge, focusing on youth employment.
A large, unemployed, educated youth population is a ticking time bomb for instability. Meaningful, merit-based jobs give young people a real stake in the success of the state. Unemployment just feeds the polarization cycle.
And finally, key to provincial harmony, fair resource distribution.
The way national revenues and resources are distributed has to be transparent and equitable.
Yeah.
And it has to be perceived as fair by all provinces. That transparency is what de-weaponizes the narrative of regional exploitation that some politicians love to use.
Moving to step 5, this one is about the integrity of the state itself.
Step 5, institutional neutrality. The mission here is to restore the original function of state institutions. They must unite the nation by stopping the service of factions.
What does true neutrality look like in practice, though, especially in a supercharged political environment?
It means all core state institutions, the military, the bureaucracy, the police, the judiciary, they have to be rigorously impartial. Hiring, promotions, decisions, all based strictly on merit and law, not on who is in power politically.
They have to be fiercely professional.
Yes, adhering to technical standards and ethical codes that are above politics. Competence has to be valued more than loyalty.
And critically, they have to be demonstrably non-political.
Their leadership has to resist the urge to become players in political disputes. They have to stick to their constitutional mandate. The moment an institution is seen as partisan or as intervening in politics, it instantly becomes a tool of division. It validates the whole manufactured disunity narrative.
And finally, step 6. This one brings it all back home to the individual citizen. You can fix the system from the top, but unity has to be sustained from the bottom up.
Step 6, civic responsibility culture. This is the idea that unity has to be practiced daily by every citizen. It can't just be demanded by the state.
It's that two-way street again. The state provides justice and opportunity. The citizen provides loyalty and adherence to the law. What does this prescription demand from the citizen?
It demands citizens who, first, obey the law consistently, not just when you might get caught, but as a deep cultural norm. Traffic laws, tax laws, everything. Lawfulness becomes an act of patriotism.
Second, citizens who respect differences, even disagreements.
This is a fundamental shift to civil discourse. Recognizing that disagreeing on policy is not treason. You can have radically different political views from your neighbor, and you can both still be loyal to the constitutional state.
Third, citizens who actively reject hate speech and actions.
This is the individual's role in dismantling manufactured disunity. It takes courage to stand up to sectarianism or ethnic hatred, to refuse to be drawn into those divisive narratives. Simply refusing to forward a hateful message is a civic act.
And fourth, citizens who participate constructively in the national life.
Active, positive participation, voting thoughtfully, engaging in your local community, holding your representatives accountable, contributing positively instead of just retreating into private grievance.
Mr. Meer's work doesn't just offer this roadmap, it ends with a really compelling vision of what success would actually look like.
It does. Summarizing the outcome, he envisions a nation where provinces compete in development, not hostility. They're all trying to be the best governed, most prosperous region while collaborating on national goals.
A nation where politics serves the nation, not just specific parties. Where political competition is fierce, yes, but where everyone is loyal to the constitutional order and focus on service, not destruction.
Where diversity becomes cultural wealth, not a political weapon. Where different languages and traditions are sources of national pride that enrich everyone, not lines drawn for warfare.
And most critically, where unity is constitutional and functional, not merely ceremonial, it's a unity that actually works. In the courts, in the economy, in the schools, every single day. Because it's built on that visible foundation of justice.
And the book concludes that when this model is achieved, when Pakistan becomes one nation under one law, no power can stop its rise.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from the original unity formula to the diagnosis of the 6 fault lines and through the entire 6-step reconstruction framework. The core argument from the source material is, I think, very clear. The nation doesn't need a forced uniformity. It needs unity built on pervasive justice.
The diagnosis is that internal decay, which is fueled by selective justice and opportunistic identity politics, is far more dangerous than any external threat. But the solution isn't in new slogans. It's in the rigorous daily application of old principles: equality before the law, meritocracy, and putting state loyalty above every single factional interest.
The book's final command really summarizes the whole mission. Heal divisions, restore justice, and Pakistan will rise united. It's a call to build, not just to criticize.
And if we accept the premise that disunity is manufactured, then the power to unmanufacture it has to lie in the hands of the individual citizen. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener. What immediate, tangible change in your own sphere of civic responsibility, obeying a law, respecting a different opinion, rejecting hate speech, could you practice today to start dissolving one of these 6 fault lines? Because the reconstruction starts right there, with the choices of the individual citizen.
A great question to end on. Thank you for joining us for this crucial deep dive into the sources of national confusion. We'll see you next time.